Navigate the gauntlet of uncertainty the world throws at your business with SAP. Whether it's a tropical storm hitting your warehouse or a short supply of those little plastic twist ties, SAP can help you tackle those unexpected crushing setbacks with its AI-powered capabilities. To pivot to new suppliers, automate paperwork, and source the twist ties you need at the price you want, so your business can stay unstoppable. Learn more at sap.com/uncertainty.
We cannot attack them for doing the wrong thing if we can't celebrate when they do the right thing. And we have to give them credit for that. And they are the highest ranking corporate officers in America who finally took a stand against this. And it may come at great cost to them.
Welcome to the Ankler Podcast. It's the morning of Wednesday, September 24th, and I'm your host, Elaine Lowe, staff writer at The Ankler and author of the series Business Newsletter. What a roller coaster week it's been, where the forces of the federal government clashed directly with Hollywoodland as late-night comedian Jimmy Kimmel was yanked unceremoniously off the air by Disney last Wednesday after one of his monologues prompted the chair of the FCC to make a veiled threat against the company if it didn't take action against Kimmel. This set off days of protests, Disney Plus cancellations, and alarm bells that rang well beyond the entertainment industry over issues of free speech and censorship and what kind of domino effect this could provoke. But Disney decided to bring Kimmel back on Tuesday night, saying it had had, quote, thoughtful conversations with Jimmy and had taken him off ABC to, quote, avoid further inflaming a tense situation during an emotional time for our country, end quote, and that his comments were, quote, ill-timed and thus insensitive. But just because Kimmel is back doesn't mean that this maelstrom is over. Nexstar and Sinclair, which together control ABC affiliates in more than 70-some markets, or about 20% of the network's reach nationwide, well, as of this morning, they're still choosing to boycott Jimmy Kimmel Live. And President Trump went after ABC on social media yesterday, suggesting he would now take legal action against the network. So we here at The Ankler still have a lot of questions, like what kind of flack is Disney going to get from the Trump administration and the FCC? How long can Nexstar and Sinclair keep Kimmel off the air? What kind of impact does this have on Disney's succession plans? And amid all this, is there a deeper meaning behind Apple TV Plus's decision this week to delay the release of a Jessica Chastain show with a political storyline that has riled up the right wing? I'm here with Sean McNulty of The Wake Up, Natalie Jarvie of Like and Subscribe, and the Ankler himself, Richard Rushfield, who has been specially deployed to the pod this week to help us figure this all out. Richard, what was your reaction to watching Kimmel's show last night?
Well, he did a great job coming back. I mean, that was a very... I think he hit just the right notes in the podcast. It was the first time I've watched a late night show monologue in 40 years or something.
I was going to say, I think that might be a while. The first time in a while,
linear
a lot
TV,
of people tuned
Richard?
in.
Did you watch it on linear television?
No, I actually watched it on YouTube.
Okay, there you go.
It's racked up 11 million views so far.
Yeah. But, I think he was respectful of the tragedy and very forceful about the issues at stake here and funny about it, and he's always been a very good Oscar host. So he was he handled this sensitively and well with a lot of humor. So I think that was great.
Notably, he didn't apologize. He clarified his comments, his meaning, his intent, but he did not say, I'm sorry for what I said, which, I think a lot of people were keeping a close eye on whether he would apologize.
I mean, given that he didn't. What he said was totally true on a basic level. He had nothing to apologize for other than like, I'm sorry you guys are upset, and that really to do that would have been a betrayal of the people that stood by him.
100%. I just know that was a lot in the discussion leading up to his return was what would it take to get him back on the air, and would an apology be necessary? So, definitely something people were keeping an eye out for.
He expressed regret if anybody had taken it that he was glad about an assassination or anything, and he was very clear that he doesn't condone violence or support that in anything. And I think anybody who was holding out and saying he didn't apologize to me is not in good faith, shall we say.
If anything, he focused more on the censorship issue. He said, and we can listen to this clip now,
our freedom to speak is what they admire most about this country. And that's something I'm embarrassed to say I took for granted until they pulled my friend Stephen off the air and tried to coerce the affiliates who run our show in the cities that you live in to take my show off the air. That's not legal. That's not American. That is un-American, and it is so dangerous.
Sean, you did a fantastic breakdown in the Wake Up the other day about what would have happened if Disney had called FCC Chair Brendan Carr's bluff and how much revenue was actually at stake for Disney. So now that Nexstar and Sinclair are notably still holding out on Carrie and Kimmel, like they did not air this whole show and the monologue last night, and they were showing, I don't know, extra long editions of the local news instead. Walk us through the potential outcomes of this standoff. Who has more to lose here? And explain it to me like I am a small child with only a moderate interest in how affiliates work.
Yeah, well, and these deals are very bespoke and they're not like one size fits all. So again, this is generally how these agreements work, but there's a reason the affiliate network relationship has existed for the history of television, and these stations have never really materially gone independent and left ABC or NBC or CBS en masse. They benefit these stations. They make their money from the programming that ABC creates. And I'm not talking about Jimmy Kimmel, which essentially, if you break down the numbers, and I broke them down in the Wake Up if you want to look at the math, but it's maybe a $20 million a year national ad revenue, hit that you would get from losing these stations. The majority of the money that the Nexstar and Sinclair stations make is from college football, NFL, and they're not losing that. And, these stations have a financial responsibility to their shareholders, one of which is in the midst of a $6.2 billion deal to make money. I have some numbers that someone pointed out to me about they put Family Feud reruns in the slot last week, Elaine, when it was out. You want to know what the number did? Probably about a third of the average of what Kimmel did in the second quarter. So try explaining that to your shareholders, try explaining that to Wall Street as to why you're standing on this cliff of I don't know what to prove what point, because you're upset about something that someone said. From a financial point of view, this does not look good over time. Now, the relationships you asked about, the contracts, they are contractually obligated to air what ABC puts out. You cannot really select. You have small carve-outs for maybe again, this is all by reporting and not by the exact deal, structure per se, but carve-outs to maybe not air it a certain number of times. Once you go over that, you're essentially in breach of contract with ABC. What ABC chooses to do with that, we shall see. But that's where this is going next. If they maintain, again, we're recording here on Wednesday, we'll see if they have a change of heart about what happened on the show and are appeased by whatever Jimmy said or whatever corporate communication stuff they want to put out there, Elaine. But this will keep going. This is not over in terms of relationship between ABC and these stations.
Well, the why of it is, perhaps arguably less related to being offended and more so, Nexstar's got a $6.2 billion deal pending to acquire Tegna that requires federal approval.
And if the FCC is threatening, and this is, again, Brendan Carr's talked 5 ways from Sunday about this, about what he's actually, exactly specifically saying here, but they can make the argument, well, the FCC is going to take away our license because we're airing your show. Now, that hasn't happened, and that if that were, that's 10 steps down the line that, by all things I've read, is pretty legally dubious in terms of like, all right, would that ever stand up in a court of law with the Supreme Court? Obviously, a lot of bets are off right now, but that's their protection on this. But until an actual action is taken, these guys are going to have to take the show or not take it, and if they don't, maybe ABC can put it on a different station in the market. Maybe they're free to maybe put that show elsewhere, and then you're competing against that show that he was giving you, a high rating with now your local news, which I would be shocked if that was giving you anywhere near the audience that you were getting with Kimmel, and you're losing money. So again, it's a lot of just like shrug emojis, kind of what I'm doing right now.
Well, you want to talk about legally dubious. Did you all see what President Trump posted on Truth Social after this last night?
Open threats. Yeah.
Yes. He said, quote, "I think we're going to test ABC out on this. Let's see how we do. Last time I went after them, they gave me $16 million. This one sounds even more lucrative. A true bunch of losers. Let Jimmy Kimmel rot in his bad ratings," end quote.
Yeah, nothing too shocking about that one. I don't, and again, Brendan Carr's been out there, walking.
Is it really not shocking, Sean? Or are there things we should
in,
still be shocked about when something is that explicit of a threat?
You can be shocked or not shocked. That's up to the eye of the beholder on it. It's just that you can't say that this is not blatantly out there, that we're not reacting. Nexstar and Sinclair had, we didn't consult with the FCC about our decision. This was a business thing. It's like, this is not, no one looks at this and thinks anything like that was your course of events or thoughts on that. But Richard, you see this stuff. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, he's been filing all these suits and everything. Everywhere where they've pushed back, they seem to get thrown out, or he thinks he can shake them down for another quick 30 million or whatever. Which I wouldn't discount the idea that he can do that, given that ABC has settled one of these in Paramount, and this isn't over yet, but. I'd just like people to look Brendan Carr in the eye and say, "Go ahead, pull our
Exactly.
licenses here." American people don't like to have things taken away from them,
Exactly.
especially for silly political reasons. So explain to them why they can't watch their favorite show and direct those emails to bcar@fcc.gov or whatever it is.
Yeah, and Elaine, it's also important. He's also threatened The View. We're 9 months into the presidency. It's like if he's going to keep, you have to, at some point. It's, this analogy's been made. It's a bully. All right. You're going to stand up and you're going to stand by legal backing or you're not. And it's like, you're going to have, you have to decide what you want to do here, but simply, trying to appease the president. He's clearly said, I'm coming back. And if you don't stand up and say, we're not doing that, this will go on for 3 more years, and pick your other ABC programming or NBC programming or CBS programming as you wish.
But he always says, I'm coming back, and this time, you wait. You're going to be real sorry here. We'll see how you feel. I mean, he always talks that way. And,
exactly.
What's the phrase? You give someone an inch, they'll take a mile. Like, that feels like this is what he's trying to do here. I would not put it past him to continue to, try to leverage as much as he can from these companies now that they've already ABC and Paramount, settled once. Why not do it again?
And look at the Times, look at the Journal. I mean, the Times had he filed a lawsuit against the Times. He got thrown out within a week. The Journal has fought back heavily against, they put a motion in to dismiss his lawsuit against them over the Epstein story. The printed press has been making a pretty hard line in the sand here. So we'll see if network TV, this is the first straw, Elaine. Will there be more coming? Will this be Disney's stance going forward? We shall see. Again, this is still pretty early on.
Well, Richard, you said that Disney was put in a really tough position here. Was there really like a right path forward? You said that they kind of took a detour through the wrong path before they wound up doing the right thing.
Yeah, I mean, what they did in the end is what they should have done in the first place. And when you look at how this will affect the succession and all that, I mean, this got a lot worse than it had to get because they took that detour into caving in and everything. And they clearly did not understand what they were unleashing, which is a big problem for people in the communications business.
Well, let's take a little break first. But when we return, we'll get into the impact of all this drama on Disney's carefully laid succession plans, a possible domino effect on the rest of the business, and the more troubling issues at the heart of all of this. See you back here in a moment.
Mint is still $15 a month for premium wireless. And if you haven't made the switch yet, here are 15 reasons why you should. 1, it's $15 a month. 2, seriously, it's $15 a month. 3, no big contracts. 4, I use it. 5, my mom uses it. Are you playing me off? That's what's happening, right? Okay, give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, $15 per month equivalent required. New customer offer first 3 months only. Then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.
I'm Natalie Jarvie, and I write Like and Subscribe, a newsletter about the big business of the creator economy. It's a $250 billion a year industry, and it's producing the next generation of stars. If you're on the internet, and if you're listening to this, you clearly are, you can't afford to be out of the loop. In Like and Subscribe, I'll tell you what's next for YouTube now that it's beating Netflix in the living room, what's happening with TikTok, Instagram, and Snapchat, and whether Hollywood is still a place for creators to make money or just a legacy pit stop to bypass. I'll also bring you up close with the biggest creators in the world so that they can tell you what's working, where the deals are, and how they keep growing and growing. So check out Like and Subscribe by Natalie Jarvie, that's me, on Substack, a new subscription from the same team who bring you The Ankler. Go to likeandsubscribenews.substack.com. likeandsubscribenews.substack.com. I'll see you there soon.
I was not happy when they pulled me off the air on Wednesday. I did not agree with that decision, and I told them that, and we had many conversations. I shared my point of view. They shared theirs. We talked it through, and at the end, even though they didn't have to, they really didn't have to. This is a giant company. We have short attention spans, and I am a tiny part of the Disney Corporation. They welcomed me back on the air, and I thank them for that, because I know that unfortunately, and I think unjustly, this puts them at risk.
Welcome back to the Ankler Podcast, where Richard Rushfield, Sean McNulty, Natalie Jarvie, and I are digging into the ramifications of Kimmel's show being suspended and then reinstated on the air, all in less than a week, after Disney faced highly unusual political pressure from the FCC. Natalie, you've covered the succession saga at Disney pretty thoroughly over the last couple of years. Bob Iger and entertainment chair Dana Walden are responsible ultimately for the decision to suspend Kimmel and to bring him back. But they've both faced a lot of criticism from the creative community this past week. What do you think this does to Iger's legacy and to receptiveness to Walden as a possible successor to him as CEO? She's one of the candidates that really I feel like has been most welcomed by Hollywood, given her ties to them as a creative executive.
Yeah, ultimately, I think that this complicates Iger's legacy more than it complicates Disney's succession planning. When Iger retired the first time, he went out on a huge high, and he came back to a very different Disney and a very different world. And there have been a lot of challenges for him in the last few years, notably the WGA and SAG strikes. Ultimately, he was part of the group of people who were able to, help negotiate those contracts and get people back to work. Now he's dealing with this. It's just a very, very different climate for him than it was the first time around, and Disney is in a very different position today. On the succession front, the Disney board is not going to make this decision based on who Hollywood wants. They're just not. That's not what the Disney board cares about. They care about Wall Street and they care about investors, and they're going to make the decision that is right for those constituents. And I feel like it's the kind of thing where, if they are looking at Dana seriously and want to give her the job, they can find a way to brush this aside and move past it. And if they don't want to give her the job, then they can use this as an argument for why she didn't get the job. But I don't know if in the long run, this is going to be the thing that, that really affects her candidacy in this process.
Richard, what's your take on this?
Like I say, this did not have to be so complicated. It depends what comes in next. If this is the beginning of Disney taking a strong stand and being the bulwark against this madness in Hollywood, and the tide turns, and in 6 months, this moment will look very different. At this moment, it looks like they got to the right place, but it was a very messy path there. And I salute them for getting there, but I don't think anyone... If you're on the board, what you're seeing here is we still have a big mess to clean up. Okay, everyone's happy they did on the right thing, but you created this disaster has happened, not through our own making, but we made it worse. And it's not over for us. We still have all these people angry at us. We still have possible government action. And so I don't think if you're on the board, this is looking like an enormous victory at this moment.
It's true, but it also wasn't Dana's decision alone. There's cover there in that she and Bob made these decisions together.
Well, you wouldn't know that from reading the coverage, I'll tell you that.
Yeah,
The mentions of the word Walden in every behind-the-scenes article are like they have made it very clear who is the person they're putting on point for this. And I'll refer you to the long history from Anne Sweeney on of all the people who were waiting to inherit the Iger throne there, and what happens to them while they're waiting. So
yeah, a lot of bridesmaids on that list.
Yeah. Also, keep in mind here that Kimmel's contract is still up at the end of the season. That's a decision that's going to have to be made here. And so again, this is like, let's say it's inning 1 or 2 here, but to Richard's point, it got through this point. I think I agree with Richard. I'm glad, tough road to get there, but they got to the right area. But this isn't like, oh, well, problem solved. It's like, you're going to have to renew this guy or not, assuming he wants to stay around, which hopefully he will, Richard. But, still a question out there.
He's been talking for 2 years now about how
does this re-energize him to be like, I'm not leaving now, in the middle of the Trump presidency? I don't know, but it's
does this make him say enough of this?
Or it could be that.
Now, he's been dealing with, as he alluded to in his monologue, a lot of threats, a lot of upheaval to his personal life as this. And I would guess that in the natural order of things, he would have been ready to move on at the end of this contract. But now it's colored in if he does that. Ultimately you do what you got to do for for your reasons. And the story takes care of itself in time.
Yeah. Richard, you were pretty generous in your assessment, I feel like, with Disney execs, with Iger, with Walden, in their hailing their decision. But how much of that was motivated by wanting to take a stand against political pressure versus, just pressure from their own community and anecdotal evidence that people were canceling their Disney Plus subscriptions en masse?
When people do the right thing, I'm not going to worry too much about what the motives were or why they were doing this. The Disney company, almost alone in American institutions, got to the right place and made a stand against this. And, we go through everything from Harvard to Columbia to certainly Paramount and all these law firms in between that just completely caved in. We had every reason to think that they would cave in because that's what everyone has done, and they finally took the right stand. And if that was because of backlash or pressure or Hulu cancellations, then fine. Whatever it took to get there is great. But we cannot attack them for doing the wrong thing if we can't celebrate when they do the right thing, and we have to give them credit for that. And they are the highest ranking corporate officers in America who finally took a stand against this. And it may come at great cost to them. They don't know what the future will be here.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes me wonder about the knock-on effect of Disney pulling Kimmel off of the air in the first place. Just yesterday, we saw that Apple TV Plus tried to quietly delay the release of its new Jessica Chastain series, The Savant, which is about an online sleuth who infiltrates extremist communities to try and prevent domestic terrorist attacks. I got a statement from Apple TV Plus that only said, quote, "After careful consideration, we have made the decision to postpone The Savant. We appreciate your understanding and look forward to releasing the series at a future date." Some people believe it was sort of tied to the timing around Kirk's assassination and sensitivities around that. Other people are wondering if it's tied to, everything going on with Kimmel and being a little concerned about what you say and what communities you're riling up right now. And then Jessica Chastain released a statement this morning, said some nice things about Apple, but also said that she is, quote, "not aligned on the decision to pause the release of The Savant." And she said, quote, "Until then, I'm wishing safety and strength for everyone, and I'll let you know if and when The Savant is released."
Yeah, I mean, it kind of reinforces that these are talent-based companies where you have Nexstar and Sinclair. Jessica Chastain's not working with them. There's no Hollywood talent that's making a deal with those people. They operate to their shareholders, but there's no talent elements with that. With the Disney business, will people not work with them? There are plenty of people who, voiced their protest to the decision last week, Elaine. Whether that manifests or not will be another question, but this has other ramifications other than just pending deal or, the advertising revenue about 11:30 on weeknights.
Yeah, we saw 300 to 400 people outside of Disney headquarters in Burbank last week. These people all had it was mostly through the Writers Guild, but they had a 40-minute notice to say, hey, come out and pick it outside. And within an hour, there were like almost 400 people there, very worked up about this.
Yeah.
So the community has strong feelings.
How long that would last, who knows? But I'm just saying, there are, if Disney were to, would have gone a different way on this decision, there may have been other ramifications with the Hollywood community. I don't know if that's true. Richard, does this stuff ever hold any weight with you in terms of like someone, maybe refusing to work with a studio because of something like this? Or is this more posturing, or where do you land on this?
If they had kept Kimmel off the air and we had continued to go down that line, I think there would have been a lot of anger, but there also, I think pretty soon we would have been in a situation where every single studio had done pretty much the equivalent of that. So, if you want to retire from the business, you can go ahead. It depends what comes next. If this is the line and they're really making a stand, I think people will forgive them for this tough week, especially because the other choices.
Oh, sure, yeah.
If you're a creative person deciding where you want to work right now, there's no angels hiring at this moment. I'm sorry to say, it's all tough.
What?
And I think,
you mean the corporations looking to make money aren't looking out for your best interest, Richard?
I mean, particularly in reference to Trump in this time, they are all of them, to one degree or another, making accommodations and going away and paying their little visits to Mar-a-Lago. Ted Sarandos has been down there. Tim Cook made a speech in which he praised Donald Trump, I think, 20 times recently. But I think for the tech companies with the Jessica Chastain show,
right,
they are seeing like everyone wants to come to Hollywood because you want to go to Oscars and you want to take your pictures with celebrities and you want to have big stars supported with your brand and all that. And they are discovering why it's not quite so easy. There are a lot of headaches attached to being part of a creative profession, particularly at a moment like this.
Well, the thing I want to end on is to ask you all, do you feel like this Kimmel debacle marks an inflection point in the public discourse around free speech and censorship by the government, sort of within and beyond the entertainment industry? I know sometimes when we're, working on stories within our bubble, like things can feel very big and dramatic and the rest of the country just doesn't care, right? But this certainly doesn't feel this way with this story.
It's the first time you've seen a lot of Republicans joining Ted Cruz and Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens and all.
Joe Rogan even weighed in yesterday.
Yeah, Mitch McConnell and all these other people pushing back. And that's the biggest instance of that that's happened this year. So that makes a big difference, but we'll see what comes next. It will be in retrospect. If this was a one-off stand and will be followed by a succession of capitulations, then it won't be that significant historically.
I'll second what Richard said 100%.
Yeah, I actually spoke to Candace Owens this week and asked for her opinion about the Kimmel situation. She had talked about it on her podcast, but she reiterated that she did not think he should have been pulled off the air. She basically said, I want to compete with him in the free market. I'd rather beat him in the free market, have people stop watching his show because they don't agree with his politics or the things he's saying, than to have someone from the government pull him off instead. So, it's definitely... it's causing people who aren't typically aligned politically to, share some points of view right now around the importance of free speech.
Yeah.
And that is a curious place to be, but we are at a curious point in the juncture of this entertainment industry era right now. So that is a wrap on this week's Ankler podcast. Very curious about all of your takes, listeners. Visit theankler.com to subscribe to all of our newsletters and pods to stay ahead of what's happening in the industry. And, we had a couple of people come up to us at Emmys parties to say that we were getting a lot right on the show. A couple of you thought our takes were wrong. If you think we got something wrong, don't wait for the next time we've got a drink in hand. Just email us at podcasts@theankler.com. And if you love the pod and our coverage of the business of Hollywood, leave us a rating and review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your pods from. You can also follow us at The Ankler on all major social platforms. Thanks to Sean McNulty, Natalie Jarvie, and Richard Rushfield, and thank you all for listening. I'm Elaine Lowe. See you next week.